Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
We all know that person who just seems to naturally understand people, their hidden feelings, their true motivations. It's almost like a sixth sense, isn't it?
It really feels like that sometimes.
They walk into a room and instantly grasp the dynamics, who's feeling what, and why certain behaviors are, unfolding.
Yeah, they just get it.
And they communicate so effectively that people truly hear them. And they can spot deception or manipulation from a mile away. Sometimes their insight into another person's inner world even surpasses that person's own self-awareness.
It definitely feels like a unique gift. But what our sources for this deep dive reveal is that this isn't some mystical, innate ability you're either born with or not. It's actually a skill, much like any other, that can be learned and mastered.
Ah, okay. So not magic then?
No, not magic. Think of it as a blend of refined emotional intelligence, acute social awareness, and the razor-sharp observational prowess you'd expect from, say, a seasoned FBI agent or a perceptive clinical psychologist.
Exactly. And the why behind cultivating this skill is incredibly compelling. When you can quickly and accurately analyze someone's character, their behavior, and even their unspoken intentions, you open up new pathways for communication.
Makes sense.
You learn to tailor your message so it truly resonates, which helps you achieve your desired outcomes. It's also a powerful self-defense mechanism, allowing you to spot when you're being deceived or subtly manipulated.
Right, spotting the signs.
Beyond that, it bridges divides, helping you comprehend people with vastly different values, improving everything from casual small talk to navigating complex conflicts.
And that's just the external benefit. Unexpectedly, developing these skills often leads to profound self-understanding.
Oh, interesting. How so?
By learning to see others more clearly, you inevitably gain insight into your own biases, your fears, your deepest motivations.
This heightened self-awareness cultivates greater compassion, helps you establish healthier boundaries, and can even sharpen your negotiation abilities. It truly transforms how you interact with and understand the world around you. It's quite a thought, isn't it? Every single person you meet is essentially a mystery. How do we ever truly know what's happening inside their minds? What they're thinking, feeling, planning?
You really can't know for sure.
It's like each individual is a black box. Their inner experience is fundamentally closed off to us. All we have to go on are the external signs. The words they say, their facial expressions, their body language, their past history, their physical appearance, the tone and quality of their voice.
That's precisely it. Our mission isn't to claim absolute certainty, because human beings are complex, living, and constantly evolving. Their inner world is inherently private.
Right.
Instead, our goal is to make the best possible guesses by gathering high-quality data from these observable signs and then intelligently analyzing it using robust, accurate models of human nature.
Okay, so like an engineer figuring out a machine.
Kinda, yeah. Just as an engineer can infer the function of a complicated machine by studying its outputs, we can learn to analyze people to understand the what, the why, and the how of their behavior.
And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're diving into sources that provide multiple models or ways of looking at human beings. These aren't necessarily competing theories, but different lenses that, when used together, offer a truly fresh and comprehensive understanding.
Different angles on the same problem.
Our mission today is to equip you with foundational principles for analyzing people, even near strangers, often after just a single conversation. We're moving beyond mere hunches to methodical, logical, and truly data-driven analysis. We'll explore questions like, what are the origins or causes of the observed behavior? What psychological, social, or physiological mechanisms sustain it? What's the outcome or effect of this behavior, and how is it triggered by specific events, other people's actions, or even your own presence?
That last one is key, how we influence what we see.
So let's start at the beginning. Many of us think we're good with people, but are we really?
It's quite common for people to confidently claim a knack for reading others, yet rarely pause to check if their assessments are accurate. This often boils down to a phenomenon called confirmation bias.
Right. We remember the hits and forget the misses.
Exactly. We tend to vividly remember the times we were right and conveniently overlook or downplay our numerous errors. Think of how many times you've heard someone say, I used to think so-and-so was one type of person, but then once I got to know them, I realized I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I've definitely said that.
That anecdote speaks volumes about our natural inclination to trust our initial, often flawed, judgments.
That's a profound obstacle because if you approach learning anything new with the conviction that you already know it all, you're essentially closing yourself off to true growth. So beyond confirmation bias, what's another subtle trap that even experienced observers fall into?
One of the biggest pitfalls, our source highlights, is what they call the single sign fallacy.
The single sign fallacy.
Yeah. You might see an online article proclaiming 5 telltale signs someone is lying, and then try to spot them. The problem is that a single sign in isolation means almost nothing.
Okay, give me an example.
For example, is someone looking up and to the left because they're fabricating a lie? Or are they simply distracted by a fly buzzing near the ceiling? Or a Freudian slip, it might reveal a juicy secret, or it might just be the result of, sleep deprivation.
Right, could be anything.
Context is absolutely vital. You can't draw definitive conclusions from one statement, one facial expression, or one isolated behavior. True analysis requires gathering data, and more importantly, observing broader trends.
And those broader trends aren't universal, are they?
Yeah.
Cultural context plays a massive role. What might be a clear signal in one culture could mean something entirely different in another.
Precisely. Take something as simple as eye contact. In America, maintaining direct eye contact is often seen as a sign of honesty and intelligence.
Sure, look them in the eye.
But in a place like Japan, prolonged eye contact can be considered disrespectful or even aggressive. Similarly, putting your hands in your pockets might be seen as negative in most cultures, but how gestures are interpreted can vary widely. Initially, it takes conscious effort to remember these different models of interpretation, but with practice, it becomes more intuitive.
So we need to look for consistency, for clusters and patterns, rather than just one-off events. It's like saying, she's an introvert, I saw her reading a book once. That's not masterful analysis, is it?
Not at all. If a person does the same unusual thing 5 times in a single short conversation, then that's noteworthy. The consistency of behavior is key.
Okay, consistency. What else?
Another crucial step that people often miss is establishing a baseline for an individual's normal behavior.
A baseline, meaning what they're normally like.
Exactly. Imagine a colleague who makes a lot of eye contact, smiles frequently, compliments you, and occasionally touches your arm. You might initially conclude they're showing special interest in you.
Okay, seems reasonable.
But if you later observe that this is simply their normal behavior with everyone they interact with, then your initial interpretation changes entirely. They're not showing you any interest above their baseline. Ascertaining what someone is normally like is fundamental to accurately interpreting any deviations from that norm.
Speaking of blind spots, how much of what we think we see in others is actually a reflection of ourselves?
That's a truly important question, because the problem of objectivity is profound. Our internal world constantly shapes our external interpretations.
We see what we expect to see.
Or what we fear we'll see. We often project our own needs, fears, assumptions, and biases onto others. For instance, if you've recently been lied to, you might interpret someone's nervousness as deceit, when it could simply stem from your own heightened paranoia, not their dishonesty. Understanding your own cognitive and emotional baggage is the real key to objective observation.
So know thyself first.
Pretty much. If you're unaware of how you are influencing your perceptions, your conclusions about others will inevitably be more about you than about them.
Let's put these principles into action with a scenario. Say you're interviewing a job candidate. You notice she talks quickly, stumbles on her words, sits on the edge of her seat, hands clasped tightly. Your initial thought might be, she's very nervous, probably insecure.
Okay, common first impression.
But you deliberately override that snap judgment, respecting the context that everyone is nervous in an interview.
That's a great first step. Then she mentions her previous employer was very demanding and she prefers to work independently. This could make you wonder if she struggles with taking direction. A potential red flag, right?
This could be.
But you don't have a baseline for her approach to authority. So you shift your questioning to her university days. She describes conducting independent research projects but also working closely with her old supervisor.
Okay, more data.
This new data suggests she can work under management, but perhaps only if the project aligns with her values or allows for some autonomy.
Fascinating. If you had just focused on her nervousness or the red flag of speaking ill of a previous employer, you wouldn't have gained that nuanced insight. You're synthesizing information, not just spotting stereotypes.
Exactly. And you might also realize that your presence, perhaps being a tall person with a deep voice, might be contributing to her nervousness, What you're seeing isn't just her, but her in your company.
Wow, okay. That really complicates things.
Absolutely. This highlights the problem of conflicting interpretations. Have you ever been in a group where people later completely disagreed on whether someone was flirting, or offended, or being rude? It's like everyone was living in separate realities.
Definitely. Happens all the time.
This often happens because people rely too heavily on spoken words. Studies show that only about 7% of our communication is verbal. A massive 55% comes from body language, and 38% from tone of voice. If you're only listening to the words, you're missing the vast majority of the real dialogue.
Just 7% words, that's tiny.
So, if words are such a small piece of the puzzle, how can we scientifically gauge our ability to read people? Well, there's a test developed by Simon Baron-Cohen, a prominent researcher in empathy. It's a social intelligence test, scored out of 36, with average scores around 26. Scores below 22 are often observed in individuals with autism.
What does it measure?
It primarily measures your ability to infer emotions by simply looking at people's eyes, just the eyes. It's a way to assess empathy, which is linked to overall social intelligence. Our source provides a link for those interested, and we can put that in the show notes.
That's quite specific, just the eyes. Does the test have limitations?
Oh, it definitely does, like any test. If you have a poor vocabulary or aren't culturally Western or an English speaker, your results should be interpreted with caution. It's a small piece of the puzzle, assessing your ability to read emotions from very limited information. Just a single glance at the eyes.
So not the whole picture.
Not at all. But what it does tell us is that we don't all possess the same range of social skills, and our intuition alone isn't always enough. A low score doesn't mean you're socially unaware. It just means that in real life, you encounter much more than just eyes.
So it's not about being fixed in our abilities, like you take the test and that's just how good you are.
No, not at all. The powerful takeaway here is that our empathic and social skills are not fixed. They can absolutely be developed and improved upon.
That's encouraging.
The actionable advice is to take the test, then deliberately work on your people reading skills, using the techniques we'll discuss, and come back a month or two later to retake it. You might find something fascinating. This journey helps you establish your own baseline for your people reading proficiency, and then watch it improve.
Okay, so to quickly recap this foundational section, the core insights are: most communication is nonverbal, making people reading an incredibly valuable and learnable skill as long as we're honest about our starting point.
Right. Self-awareness is key.
Context is crucial. Single signs rarely give accurate judgments. Instead, we need to look for clusters of cues, always remembering cultural background. Establishing a baseline for normal behavior is vital for interpreting deviations.
Don't forget the baseline.
And finally, self-understanding our biases, expectations, and values is critical for objective observation, preventing our own internal landscape from distorting what we see. The Simon Baron-Cohen test is a blunt reminder that our social intuition isn't always enough. But crucially, it shows empathy isn't fixed. It's a muscle you can train, making you a sharper observer with practice.
Well put.
So why bother to understand people at all? Why go to the trouble of learning about how they operate? Because if you want to influence behavior or even predict it, you need to understand what's fueling it, their motivations.
Why behind the what?
Every action, conscious or unconscious, has a reason. Only insanity suggests someone acts without one. So to truly grasp a behavior, you need to understand what motivates a person. Asking about interests, values, goals, and fears is fundamentally asking about motivations. In this section, we're exploring explanatory models for understanding behavior at a deep level, starting with the unconscious.
This is where we delve into the core predictors of behavior. Our sources begin with Carl Jung's concept of the shadow.
The shadow. Sounds a bit ominous.
It can seem that way. You might recognize the underlying idea in a common phrase, like when you see someone overcompensating, perhaps the bald, overweight man in the expensive, noisy red sports car, and people remark, "I wonder what he's compensating for."
Huh, yeah, I've heard that one.
It's a coarse joke, but it speaks to a shared understanding that sometimes people are driven by unconscious inner forces they don't necessarily see themselves.
So the shadow contains all those disowned, ignored parts of our nature, our pettiness, fear, rage, vanity that we hide from others and even from ourselves.
Exactly. Jung believed that true psychological health comes from acknowledging and accepting all of oneself, not just the positive aspects. Even if we repress it, the shadow still exists and manifests subtly in behavior, thoughts, feelings, dreams, or unguarded moments. Observing these outward signs in others can provide deep insight.
How does it manifest? Like, what should we look for?
It's built on the duality principle. Light exists because of dark, up because of down. Humans are a blend of complementary forces. Consider someone raised in a strict household, pushed academically with no social life. Their conscious mind is highly polarized. But what happens to their impulse for freedom, rebellion, or play?
It gets pushed down, repressed.
Right, it gets repressed. Our source notes that, like constantly keeping a beach ball submerged underwater, it takes immense energy to deny the shadow. Eventually, that beach ball pops up. This explains why such a person might go wild in early adulthood, making up for lost time.
So the core insight here is that we're not just seeing the tip of the iceberg, but the vast, often hidden mass beneath.
What's fascinating here is how deeply rooted these unconscious drives are and how they subtly shape every interaction. This shadow model provides a few key insights. Firstly, it fosters deeper understanding and compassion. If you see a school bully's aggression as stemming from suppressed feelings of inferiority and weakness, you can engage with them beyond a superficial level. You're dealing with the whole person, not just their carefully curated conscious self.
Which naturally leads to more effective communication, right? If you can speak to those unacknowledged parts of a person's psyche, their impulse toward wholeness or authenticity, you can communicate more deeply.
Precisely. For example, an arrogant, narcissistic person might have a shadow filled with self-hate. Tearing them down, as is the common reaction, only strengthens the shame that created that split.
Okay, so attacking the defense makes it stronger.
Exactly. But if you see their grandiosity as a defense mechanism, you can adjust your communication, choosing not to reinforce that shame. You can't force someone to integrate their shadow, but it gives you invaluable insight into how to interact with them. This understanding can be used persuasively, perhaps by subtly flattering their intelligence, or compassionately by communicating acceptance and showing there's nothing shameful about what they repress.
It's like relaxing the pressure on that beach ball.
Allowing it to float gently to the surface. This isn't about becoming a psychotherapist. It's about working on our own shadows while using the model to understand others. Even groups, families, communities, nations can have collective shadows that influence their behavior.
The ultimate attitude in the Jungian spirit should be one of love and acceptance. Not gotcha, but seeing wholeness. Identifying others' shadows is an invitation to look honestly at our own. We all hide similar things, feeling small, weak, unlovable, lazy, jealous.
And a powerful way to identify your own shadow triggers is to notice what feelings others' behavior provokes in you.
Okay, pay attention to my own reaction.
Yes, if a boastful intellectual calls your idea stupid and you feel a prickle of anger or embarrassment, it reveals your own unwanted feeling of inferiority. Astute observers know that insults often reflect the speaker's self-perception. If you realize this, you can avoid getting hooked into an ego defense argument.
So when you encounter someone new, you can quickly run through a few questions to see them on a deeper level. What are they actively portraying? What might they be unwilling to acknowledge about themselves? How might that unacknowledged part be unconsciously driving their surface behavior?
Good questions. And also, how are they making me feel right now? Are they projecting or triggering my own shadow? And finally, how can I communicate compassion and understanding for what's in their shadow? That's about reading between the lines.
Okay, reading between the lines.
Our sources then move to a related concept, the inner child.
The inner child, heard of that.
This is that unconscious part of ourselves representing the children we once were. Childhood often dictates which parts of us are acceptable, shaping both our shadow and conscious personality. Inner child work is akin to shadow work, a compassionate reparenting of oneself.
And we can observe this in others, too. Disproportionate emotions, sudden anger, hurt, defensiveness can signal an activated inner child or shadow. It's that feeling you sometimes get that you're dealing with a child in an adult's body.
Exactly. A key sign is when you feel positioned as a parent, instinctively wanting to soothe, reprimand, or take responsibility. Adults are expected to show self-restraint and reason.
Okay, so if I feel like I'm parenting them.
That's a clue. Our source gives a great example. A work colleague who flakes on meetings, doesn't do their share, and pouts when confronted. You realize they're operating from a naughty, rebellious child inner self. Knowing this, you avoid parent mode and instead engage their adult aspect, forcing them out of child mode. It's a subtle but powerful shift in understanding where the behavior is coming from.
Right, engaging the adult, not the child. Next, let's talk about Sigmund Freud's pleasure principle. It's one of the most famous and, frankly, easiest to understand motivations. The human mind seeks pleasure and avoids pain. It's a universal, predictable driver, often residing in our primal, unfiltered reptile brain.
It sounds simple, but it's powerful. This principle has a few governing rules. First, every decision we make is ultimately driven by gaining pleasure or avoiding pain, from raiding the fridge for snacks to getting a haircut. According to this model, yes. Second, pain avoidance is a stronger motivator than pleasure-seeking.
Survival instinct.
Exactly. If you're in the middle of a desert road and a semi is careening toward you in a treasure chest, you're jumping out of the way, not grabbing the treasure. Survival overrides. Third, our perceptions of pleasure and pain are more powerful drivers than the actual reality.
Perceptions matter more than reality.
Often, yes. The example of jalapeno Japanese chili-flavored grasshoppers is perfect. Your idea of disgust prevents you from trying them, even if they're delicious.
That's a potent reminder. We often self-sabotage because our perceptions are flawed, not because of reality itself.
Fourth, pleasure and pain are changed by time. We generally focus on immediate gratification. The long-term consequences of, say, smoking don't register as strongly as the immediate craving relief. This explains procrastination.
Short-term gain, long-term pain.
Fifth, emotion often beats logic. The smoker knows all the health risks, but the immediate craving wins out. Finally, survival overrides everything. In a perceived life-threatening situation, the brain shuts down everything else. This even applies to seeking pleasure, like instinctively eating a plate of unhealthy nachos when hungry, because the brain prioritizes basic survival.
So if you're trying to read someone, you can ask what good they gain or what bad they avoid by their behavior, like a child refusing to clean their room. They perceive it as painful. Reframe it into a game or link it to a reward, and you get the desired result.
Exactly. Though it's not always applicable. Humans do show discipline, self-control, and can derive pleasure from future payoffs or helping others, like Holocaust prisoners sharing food. That's why multiple models are necessary.
Right, it's not the only driver.
No. Maslow's hierarchy, for instance, helps us zoom out and see the larger developmental context of someone's motivations, which can explain seemingly irrational choices. Abraham Maslow's pyramid of needs is another famous model. It's a hierarchy where basic needs, like food and shelter, must be met before more aspirational ones like love, accomplishment, and self-actualization can be pursued.
The pyramid, yeah. Bottom level first.
Our motivations change depending on where we are in this ladder.
So an infant only needs physiological fulfillment. Food, water, shelter, rest. That's their baseline.
Yes. Then comes safety, secure income, and resources to ensure survival. Many people, unfortunately, never get past these first two stages. The third stage is love and belonging. Interpersonal relationships, friendship, community. Humans are social, and isolation can lead to instability.
Belonging, connection. Makes sense.
The fourth is self-esteem, which involves healthy relationships, confidence, and self-acceptance, often tied to achievements and the respect of others.
Feeling good about yourself.
And at the very peak, self-actualization. Living for something higher than oneself. Connecting with principles beyond convenience or comfort. Morality, creativity, spontaneity, lack of prejudice, acceptance of reality. That's where people seek their calling or purpose.
The top of the pyramid.
Maslow's model allows you to understand which stage someone is in, what's important to them, and what they need to progress. Imagine a counselor at a women's shelter. A new woman fleeing domestic violence needs physiological safety-first food, shelter for her children. A self-love workbook is useless at that point.
Totally inappropriate.
A woman who's been there for months has her physical needs met, but now needs companionship and belonging. The counselor would befriend and support her. Then, a woman who's recovering well might be seeking higher needs, tailoring the advice to match her deeper motivation. It's about meeting people where they are.
But what about the person who denies the reality of their situation, even when it's clearly harmful? Like the woman who's been beaten but insists she's not abused. Where does that fit?
That brings us to the defense of the ego. This is a universal and highly predictable motivation, protecting our pride and self-esteem from perceived threats, like being wrong, failing, or feeling shame.
Protecting the ego.
This instinct can actually bend reality, leading to intellectual dishonesty and self-deception. It's not about conscious lies, but automatic strategies to avoid looking foolish. These ego-driven errors can eventually shape entire belief systems.
So a man who consistently underperforms blames his boss, or someone who trips blames the shoes. It's the ego stepping in, isn't it?
That's exactly it. When the ego senses danger, it alleviates discomfort by lying to itself, covering up the truth to keep itself safe. These aren't premeditated lies, they're automatic, unconscious strategies.
And they become core beliefs.
Yes, over time. Consider Fred, who tied his entire identity to a pop star idol. He continued to deny the star's guilt despite overwhelming evidence. For him, accepting the truth would have been a devastating blow to his self-belief, so his ego simply wouldn't allow it. It shows that you can't defend yourself and truly listen at the same time.
Right, defenses up, ears closed. And Sigmund Freud identified specific defense mechanisms that we use to protect the ego. Anna Freud elaborated on these with examples.
She did. Let's focus on a few key ones that are particularly observable. Denial. Simply claiming something negative is false, even when presented with clear evidence. No, I don't believe that report. I can't be last. This is dangerous because problems are ignored.
Just pretending it's not happening.
Rationalization. Explaining away negative things with seemingly logical but false excuses. It's always someone else's fault. The boss had it in for me, or my shoes had no grip. It's the embodiment of the sour grapes fable, sacrificing reality for comfort.
Making excuses. Got it.
Projection. Attributing one's own unwanted traits to others. A cheating husband accuses his wife of infidelity, or the common example of a homophobic man revealed to be gay.
Seeing your own flaws in others.
Sublimation. Channeling negative emotions into different, more acceptable outlets. A lonely man channels his unmet needs into charity work, or a woman receives bad news and spring cleans her home.
Turning bad feelings into something productive, sort of.
In a way, yes. It's channeling the energy. So the core insight here is that recognizing ego defenses isn't about judgment. It's about understanding what a person fears most. This allows you to communicate past their self-protection and foster genuine connection, making your interactions far more productive.
Our deepest, often hidden needs and fears are constantly shaping our reality and therefore our observable actions.
Now, let's turn our attention to the unspoken language. It's an appealing idea that people can't help but reveal their true intentions and feelings, even as inadvertently. We always say actions speak louder than words, and our facial expressions and body language truly betray our inner selves. We're communicating constantly, but only a small fraction of it is verbal.
That's right. Observing people's actions and behavior in real time is central to analyzing them. Our physical appearance, posture, and general movements can tell us a lot about feelings, motivations, and fears, even if someone is actively trying to conceal them. As the saying goes, the body doesn't lie.
But with caveats, right? Absolutely. It's crucial to remember that this approach isn't foolproof. We're all individuals, and context is incredibly important. No single piece of information proves anything. The art lies in taking a holistic view of the full scenario as it unfolds.
Let's start with the face. Paul Ekman, building on earlier research, expanded on the theory of microexpressions. These are incredibly quick, involuntary physiological reactions of muscle groups, lasting as little as 1/30th of a second.
Blink and you miss it.
They're related to emotions and are universal across cultures, occurring even when someone is alone or actively trying to conceal their feelings. They're difficult to fake.
The brain has two neural pathways for facial expressions. The pyramidal for voluntary conscious expressions, macroexpressions, and the extrapyramidal for involuntary emotional expressions, microexpressions.
Okay, voluntary and involuntary paths.
In intense emotional situations where there's pressure to hide an emotion, both pathways are active, but conscious control usually dominates. However, tiny leaks of the real emotion still occur, and those are what you're looking for.
So our faces are constantly giving us away, even when we don't realize it.
This raises an important question. How much control do we truly have over these primal automatic expressions? Ekman identified 6 universal emotions. Instead of listing all of them, let's focus on how to spell out the crucial discrepancies. Look for the flash of genuine anger when someone's verbally agreeing with you, or the quick tightening around the eyes that says fear, even if their words are calm. These small, fleeting moments of true emotion are gold.
Spotting the mismatch. And what about stress? Does that show on the face?
Definitely. People dealing with stress often engage in pacifying behaviors, unconscious attempts to self-soothe. This includes uncontrollable fast blinking, or repetitive motions like cheek twitching, tongue biting, or face touching.
Nervous habits.
Unexpected stress releases might include yawning, not boredom, but drawing in oxygen, or ventilating, pulling a shirt collar away or tossing hair back. And remember, genuine expressions are symmetrical. Forced or fake ones tend to be asymmetrical. Every observation is just a data point. The skill is gathering enough data to see the full emerging pattern.
Okay, look for patterns, not just single signs. Now let's move beyond the face to the whole body. Joe Navarro, the ex-FBI agent, is a big proponent of body talk. He argues that the body is a billboard of thoughts.
Navarro's perspective is that nonverbal communication is inbuilt, biological and an evolutionary result of our limbic brain, the primitive, emotional, and honest part.
The limbic brain, the honest part.
While our prefrontal cortex, the intellectual part, can lie, the body always speaks the truth. Gestures, movements, postures, patterns of touching, even clothing, all communicate. We communicated non-verbally before language, and babies instinctively express needs this way. We unconsciously process vast amounts of nonverbal information.
He talks about the fight or flight or freeze responses, which can be subtle but still speak to discomfort or fear.
Indeed, the freeze response might look like a deer in headlights stare or legs locked around a chair. Flight involves physically moving the body away, placing objects on the lap, or angling limbs toward an exit. Fight is an aggressive response, showing its arguments, verbal sparring, or threatening gestures. These are all subtle remnants of our evolutionary past.
So it's about instinctively protecting the body's vital organs, right? Like crossing arms, that's a common one.
Exactly. Crossed arm signal being unresponsive, feeling attacked or criticized, a back off or blocking gesture. Slumping or having loose arms can indicate defeat or despair, as if the body is physically broadcasting, "I give up."
And confidence, how does that look?
Conversely, expansive gestures signal confidence and dominance. Arms spread wide like an animal claiming territory, or hands on hips leaving the torso exposed, communicate confidence. Hand steepling, where fingertips are pressed together, is a classic negotiating gesture of poise and certainty.
Steepling, right, like Mr. Burns.
Yeah. Wringing or rubbing hands, on the other hand, shows a lack of control or doubt. Even the legs and feet, even if hidden under a table, communicate a lot too. Happy feet, bouncing or jiggling, can signal nervous tension, impatience, or excitement. Toes pointing upward are like smiling feet, indicating positive feelings.
Happy feet. I know people who do that.
And the whole body positioning also tells a story.
How so?
It does. When you lean in to shake someone's hand, watch what they do. Standing their ground shows comfort. Stepping back suggests you're too close. Bodies expand when comfortable, happy, or dominant, and contract when unhappy, fearful, or threatened.
Expand versus contract. Okay.
They lean toward what they like and away from what they don't. Spreading out in public transport signals relaxation and confidence, while bundling oneself suggests low confidence. Dominance postures involve puffing out the chest, hands on hips, or arms laced behind the neck. Submissiveness can be seen in raising shoulders or turtling.
Turtling, like pulling your head in.
Exactly, like trying to make yourself smaller.
So when we're observing, we should ask, are their actions constricting or expanding? Is their face open or closed? Are their limbs tense or loose? Is their chin high or tucked?
That's the core. By de-emphasizing verbal communication for a moment, you open yourself up to the wealth of nonverbal information always flowing. It's often intuitive because we're already fluent in interpreting it, but we need to take conscious attention.
So putting it all together, how do we effectively read people, especially when they're trying to conceal something? Because detecting deception isn't straightforward, right? A folded arm could mean lying, being unhappy, or just being cold.
That's precisely the challenge. The gestures and expressions associated with deception often overlap with signs of stress or discomfort. No single gesture proves anything. But learning to read body language adds immense dimension to interactions. It enriches relationships, provides insight into conflicts, and enables better communication by addressing what people are actually feeling, not just what they're saying. Nonverbal signals are always there.
What are the key principles for reading body language effectively then? We've touched on some.
First, establish normal behavior. We keep coming back to this. Discount habitual gestures and focus on what's unusual for that person. Second, look for incongruent behavior. Discrepancies between verbal and nonverbal cues are incredibly telling. Someone saying, "I'm fine," while wringing their hands and sighing loudly is a clear signal of concealed distress.
The words say one thing, the body another.
Third, gather plenty of data, clusters. Never interpret a single gesture. Look for clusters of cues that reinforce or contradict each other and see if the behavior repeats in different contexts or with different people. Take your time.
Okay, clusters, not single signs. And mirroring. You mentioned that. That's a powerful one.
Fourth, look for mirroring. It's a fundamental human instinct. We tend to mimic the behavior and expressions of those we like or agree with. If a new client fails to mirror your optimism, responding with coldness and closed gestures, that indicates unreceptiveness or hostility.
Lack of mirroring means resistance.
Often, yes. Fifth, pay attention to energy. In a group, notice where intention, effort, and focus are concentrated. The leader, by name, might not be where the real power lies. Observe where attention flows, who speaks most, and how.
Follow the energy. Got it.
It's also important to remember that body language is dynamic, not static poses.
Right, it flows.
Exactly. The sixth principle. Observe the flow of information, how expressions change in response to the environment. A person's walking gait, for instance, can reveal their mood. Seventh, context is everything. No gesture occurs in a vacuum. Sweating and stuttering at a wedding are understandable. Doing so while snooping through someone's drawers is more suspicious.
Context, context, context.
Finally, consider individual personalities. Introversion, extroversion, risk tolerance. These shape how primal impulses manifest. This skill takes time and patience, but it opens up an entirely different world of understanding.
The idea that the human body is a whole and should be read that way really reframes how we think about communication, doesn't it? We often separate verbal from nonverbal, but the line can be so blurred.
It's true. The assumption we make in deep dives like this is that what's inside a person will invariably manifest itself somehow on the outside. This is because we instinctively understand that human beings are wholes. The distinction between words and the lips that say them, or the body and the gesture it makes, is often artificial.
So how does that translate into something practical, like hearing smiles over the phone? Call center managers train their staff on this. How is it possible?
It makes perfect sense when you realize a voice isn't just an abstract sound. It's a physiological part of the human body. Researcher Wim Powell from the Donders Institute published findings in PNAS in 2020 showing that people unconsciously detect subtle shifts in voice pitch, volume, and speed that accompany different gestures.
Wow, really? Gestures affect the voice.
When you make a gesture, your whole body is involved, including your voice. The muscle tension from gestures affects your vocal cords. This means you can, in fact, practice reading body language over the phone by imagining the body's movements based on vocal cues. You can even infer age, sex, ethnicity, or nationality from accent and vocabulary.
So it's about listening to the speed, timbre, volume, pitch, and control of the voice. Whether it reinforces or undermines the words, like someone saying they're excited, but their slow, sluggish voice suggests they're slumped over and overstating it.
Precisely. That brings us to thinking in terms of message clusters. Instead of analyzing individual physical actions, focus on the overall message communicated. If someone is feeling hostile, that attitude will show up in their language, actions, facial expressions, and voice, all as a unified cluster of behavior.
Give us some examples of these message clusters. What does aggression look like as a cluster?
Sure. Aggression. You'll see confronting, invasive, approaching gestures, insults, jeers, standing too close, displaying strength. It's about sudden, impactful, targeted gestures, as if the entire body is clenched around a single pointed intention.
Okay, very pointed. What about assertiveness? How is that different?
Assertiveness. This is forceful, but not as directed. Standing firm, balanced, with smooth, open expressions of a desired outcome. A muscular certainty in the voice. Less confrontational.
And submission.
Submission. Characterized by lowering and self-protective gestures,
Yeah.
making the person seem smaller. Excessive smiling, motionlessness, quiet speech, eyes downward, or a vulnerable stance.
Making yourself small. Relaxation.
Openness, relaxation. Signs include looseness, open or uncrossed arms and legs, unguarded expressions, easy speech, or even removing outer layers of clothing to show informality.
And deception, or just tension.
Deception, tension. This cluster shows conflicting signals. Look for tension, anxiety, closed body language, distractedness, and a visible effort to control oneself as they're processing information they don't want to reveal, trying too hard.
The core message here is to step back and see the symphony of signals, not just isolated notes.
Exactly. More broadly, look for these whole body patterns. Crossing, closing, shutting off can signal guardedness, suspicion, or shyness. Expanding, opening, loosening suggests friendliness, comfort, trust, and relaxation.
Open versus closed.
Forward, pointed, directed speaks to dominance, control, or persuasiveness. Preening, touching, stroking often indicates romantic intentions.
Preening, okay.
Striking, abruptness, force, loudness signals energy or violence, sometimes fear. Repeating, agreement, mirroring shows respect, friendliness, admiration, or submission.
Mirroring again. Important cue.
Think of overall behavior as an expression of holding on to, holding in, holding up, holding back. If someone's entire being signals force and control, hand-wringing, pursed lips, furrowed brow, shallow breathing, high pitch, rapid blinking, their body is sending a clear message of tension. There's something significant they're trying to keep under wraps. Further context helps determine if it's an uncomfortable admission, a lie, or just embarrassment. It's about reading the body as a holistic information source.
Beyond transient cues like body language, what about the more enduring patterns of behavior? That's where personality comes in, isn't it? It's a persistent pattern of behavior over the long term where specific gestures or tones, when repeated, form a persona.
Yes. Knowing these lifelong patterns provides crucial context for understanding specific behaviors we observe. In psychological terms, personality is a unique blend of traits, where an individual falls on various attitudinal continuums. The goal is to grasp these fundamental differences to gain deeper insight and, yes, even predict behavior.
These aren't just quizzes like the ones you see online, but powerful lenses to spot enduring patterns.
Indeed, our sources discuss three prominent frameworks: the Big Five, Jungian typologies like the MBTI, and the Enneagram. Even if you can't give someone a full test, understanding these scales helps you observe and make informed hypotheses about what you're seeing.
Let's start with the Big Five, often remembered by the acronym OCEAN. It dates back to 1949 and reduces the human psyche to 5 broad characteristics, each on a spectrum.
That's right. Everyone embodies all 5 to some degree, and their position on each spectrum defines their unique personality. Let's look at a couple of particularly useful ones for observation. 1. Openness to experience. This is about willingness to take risks and try new things. High scorers are curious, imaginative, adventurous, flexible, and seek variety, often bored by routine.
Like the creative types.
Often, yes. They're linked to leadership. Steve Jobs' calligraphy class inspiring Mac typography is a great example. Low scorers prefer continuity, stability, and are more conventional.
And the second one?
2. Extroversion. This defines how outgoing or social you are. Extroverts draw energy from others, thrive on attention, and have wide social circles. Introverts prefer solitude, are drained by large groups, and recharge alone. It's not shyness, but a different energy source.
Energy from people versus energy from solitude.
Got it.
So if you meet a new business partner who's worn to be rude and blunt, you might observe their coldness and lack of social niceties. Instead of taking it personally, you realize it's their low agreeableness, maybe. A consistent personality pattern.
Exactly. You can assert your idea, and even if they frown or cross their arms initially, you know it's business as usual for them, and they might eventually agree. Personality provides a powerful data point.
Okay, so that's the Big Five. What about Jung and the MBTI? Myers-Briggs, that one's pretty famous.
Another framework is Carl Jung's archetypes, which form the basis for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. Developed during WWII by Myers and Briggs to help people find suitable jobs, it categorizes people into 16 types based on 4 dichotomies or pairs of traits.
What are those 4 dichotomies? 1. Extroversion E. Introversion. Similar to the Big Five, this indicates the source and direction of a person's energy. Extroverts recharge with others and are action-oriented, like group discussions. Introverts recharge alone and are more thought-oriented, preferring individual projects. Okay, energy source.
2. Sensing S. Intuition. N. This describes how information is perceived. Sensing types rely on direct external info from their 5 senses, making immediate experience-based decisions, like a police officer using evidence. Intuitive types rely on internal gut feelings, connecting deeper details and patterns, taking longer to decide, like a lawyer grasping context.
Facts versus feelings or patterns.
Not exactly feelings, more like concrete facts versus abstract connections. That comes next.
Oh.
Thinking, T, feeling, F. This is about how information is processed to make decisions. Thinking types use logical reasoning and rules, making decisions from the brain, like buying a home based on resale value. Feeling types make emotion-based, values-driven decisions from the heart, like buying a home for its old neighborhood.
Head versus heart. Makes sense. And the last pair.
Judging, T. This indicates how information is implemented, sort of their lifestyle preference. Judging types are organized, structured, stick to plans, and like things settled. Perceiving types prefer improvisation, options, and see organization as limiting, living more in the moment.
Planners versus improvisers. So you get a 4-letter acronym like ESFJ, which might be stereotyped as a gossipy mom, but can unlock understanding. However, the MBTI has its shortcomings, right? It gets some criticism.
Oh, it does. It provides definitive, two-ended answers, offering no subtlety. People are rarely entirely one-sided. Also, a retest can yield different results within days or weeks due to mood or circumstances, suggesting it doesn't always reflect an actual fixed personality type.
So it's not super reliable over time.
Its reliability can be questioned. For practical application, you can't give everyone the test. Instead, try to guess their EI by observing body language for energy source. For SN, note if they're tactile and practical, S, or big picture, and TF is revealed by language, content, facts versus relationships, by their general attitude toward life, loose and open-ended. P-face, always making plans. J, you can test your hypotheses by adjusting your communication style and observing the response.
Hypothesis testing.
Yeah.
Okay. Which takes us to Keirsey's temperaments, a way to organize the MBTI's 16 types into 4 broader temperaments, each with 2 roles.
Yes, it groups the MBTI types. Let's pick 2 to illustrate. 1, the guardian, SJ sensor judger. They long to belong and contribute, are concrete, organized, and focused on responsibilities. Strengths include logistics and organization. Very dependable. 2, the rational, anti-intuitive thinker. They are driven to increase knowledge and competence, objective and abstract. Strengths include strategy and logical investigation. The problem solvers.
This sounds like it provides a deeper understanding than the MBTI alone by relating traits, more of a narrative.
It does, but no individual is just one temperament. Most have traits across all. Its benefit is fostering self-awareness and guiding communication styles. For instance, compliment an idealist, NF, on their kindness, or resolve a conflict with an artisan, SP, by appealing to practical benefits rather than logic.
Tailoring your approach. And finally, the Enneagram, which aims to identify the how and why people do things, not just the what.
The Enneagram, developed in the 1960s, is primarily a self-improvement tool that encourages facing one's faults. It has 9 types, focusing on core motivations and fears. And while we won't go through all of them, let's highlight a couple. Think of the achiever, type 3. Driven by praise, you'll see them constantly seeking validation.
The ones who need applause.
Or the challenger, type 8. Always wanting control. You'll notice their assertive, sometimes aggressive demeanor.
The boss types.
Sometimes, yes. The benefit is deeper self-understanding, unlocking unconscious thinking patterns. It functions similarly to Keirsey in guiding interaction.
So what's the overall conclusion on these personality theories, or are they the key?
The key insight here is that while these typologies offer incredible frameworks, they are just that, frameworks. The art lies in knowing when to apply them and when to adjust your lens. These models are simplifications. They're useful for observation, understanding the scales, then seeing where people might fit. But you must be ready to continuously gather new data and adjust your perceptions.
So don't get locked into a type.
Exactly. For example, you might initially read someone as a forceful challenger, type 8, based on their demeanor at work. But later, outside of work, you notice they seem more anxious. This new data might lead you to reevaluate them as perhaps a confident, direct, rational type in Keirsey's model, with high extroversion, but maybe also some underlying neuroticism and lower agreeableness from the Big Five. This deeper, multi-model understanding can actually foster a stronger connection.
Now for the most sought-after skill, lie detection. Beyond just generally understanding people, there's a very legitimate need to detect manipulation, hidden information, or outright lies as a self-defense strategy. But we have to repeat the caveat, there are no guarantees.
Absolutely. Cannot stress that enough. These are observations, theories, and best guesses. But no technique is 100% foolproof because every individual is different.
And even the pros get it wrong.
It's true. Even professionally trained lie detectors, FBI agents, CIA interrogators are prone to error. The problem is uncertainty. Most people think they're good at spotting liars, but studies show low accuracy, even among psychologists and judges. Some estimates suggest only about 50 in 20,000 people can spot a liar more than 80% of the time, which is, frankly, a dismal success rate.
Well, 50 in 20,000, that's tiny. Why is it so hard?
It's hard because the typical cues, facial expressions, body language, word choice show variability. Liars can also access the same information as detectors, and practiced liars, or those who truly believe their own lies, may show no signs at all.
And as we dig deeper, we uncover some truly fascinating insights that challenge our common assumptions, especially when it comes to something like lie detection. We all want to be human lie detectors, but the truth is, we're not as good as we think.
This is a critical point. Accuracy only improves under specific conditions.
Yeah.
When you have a solid baseline of someone's normal behavior, when the liar is spontaneous and unrehearsed, and when there are real consequences for getting caught, which increases nervousness.
High stakes help.
Right. There's no single reliable cue for dishonesty. Nervousness, for example, could stem from distrust, not lying. Instead of asking how to spot liars, we should ask why we get deceived. Our own biases, like the belief that no one would lie to us or that we'd instantly detect it, protect our ego but ultimately hinder accurate detection. Trusting your radar can be a comforting belief that obstructs true observation.
So our own desire to believe people or believe in our own skills gets in the way. Okay, so it's not just about isolated behaviors. A lie is a verbal construction, presented dynamically in conversation. It's about working with the entire conversation.
Precisely. You are a participant in that conversation, and you can strategically and proactively interact to elicit information. First, use open-ended questions to allow the other person to speak freely and lay out potentially conflicting facts you can unravel later.
Let them talk.
Yes. And keep your own evidence or knowledge quiet. Liars don't know what you know, and withholding information can cause them to inadvertently reveal flaws. For instance, if your spouse is telling a long story about being with a friend, ask about details of the evening. Later, you might reveal you know that friend is on vacation. By not revealing your knowledge up front, you let them tell their rehearsed story and expose its flaws.
Play your cards close to your chest, and liars tend to present information differently, don't they?
Yes, liars usually offer a complete, highly detailed account all at once, but have little beyond that. They've rehearsed that story, but not answers to unanticipated questions.
They have their scripts.
Truth-tellers, conversely, don't reveal everything immediately, but can easily answer further questions. You can test this by suddenly asking a random, unrelated question they wouldn't have prepared for. Liars often flounder or take longer to respond, sometimes rushing to fill gaps with detailed nonsense, whereas truth-tellers are more comfortable saying, "I don't know."
And if you spot a discrepancy, you shouldn't let on that, should you? Let them dig the hole deeper.
Generally, yes. Wait and watch them spin. When you eventually confront them with evidence, observe their response. Liars tend to get angry or shut down, while truth-tellers might be confused and simply repeat their story. Dr. James Drickle, behavioral science researcher, even notes that two liars conspiring don't consult or elaborate on each other's stories, unlike truth-tellers who are comfortable collaborating.
Interesting. The element of surprise is key then. A liar has to juggle details and appear calm. It's much easier if they've rehearsed. So spontaneous liars are worse liars.
Absolutely. If you can question someone on the spur of the moment, you increase your chances of catching them out. Beyond random questions, watch for sudden shifts in confidence, speech speed, or eye contact. A classic giveaway is an evasive answer to a direct yes-no question, which signals they're buying time. Repeating the question or a long-winded response also indicates stalling.
Like our example dialogue. Mike, did you eat my lunch? Oh, what stuff is that? You ate it, didn't you? Your lunch. Are you calling me a liar? Deflection and accusation.
That's a great example. That shift in mood, the feigned anger, like, why ask me such a stupid question, is often panic, disguised as aggression. The goal is to catch them unguarded before they can spin a tale. Be casual, offhanded, and quick with your questions. Watch for nervousness or physical and verbal attempts to hide. Some liars might even take false offense or appeal to a higher power like, "I swear to God," instead of giving a direct answer.
This paints a clearer picture of how active conversational tactics can reveal truth, much more than just looking for a shifty eye.
And we can take that a step further by increasing cognitive load. Telling the truth is recall. Telling a lie is fabrication, which is cognitively much harder. You tax their brain until they make a mistake.
Make them think harder.
You shouldn't be accusatory, but keep them talking, applying gentle pressure to thin parts of their story. This can cause the lie to unravel.
And there are ways to set the stage, like talking about honesty up front. How does that work?
Yes. Beginning the conversation by discussing how honest they perceive themselves to be creates tension between their desire to appear truthful and the act of lying. This can cause them to confess or fumble. Jay Olson, a Canadian researcher, suggests using persuasive techniques to massage the truth out with intelligent, targeted questions. You can even state something untrue yourself to observe their baseline response to non-truths. Switching between true and false statements can force them to juggle information mentally, making it harder to maintain the fabrication.
What other tactics can increase cognitive load, keep them off balance?
Ask them to recount a known true story so you can compare their presentation style. Disrupt their rehearsed story with unexpected questions. They might forget details when they return to it. Suddenly repeat an inconsequential detail incorrectly and see if they go along with it for ease or correct you. Listen for any stiffness, awkwardness, or unnaturalness in their narrative. If cracks start to show, you can allude to the consequences of lying, increasing their stress and further sapping their cognitive resources, making mistakes more likely.
More stress, more mistakes. And Joe Navarro, the ex-FBI agent, highlights how emotion plays into this, or the lack of emotion.
Right. Navarro notes that liars often present with a cool detachment, adding faked emotion that feels delayed, strangely timed, too long, or inappropriately intense. The cognitive load of lying interferes with genuine emotional expression.
So the fake emotion seems off.
Signs of cognitive overload often manifest physically. Pursed lips, the body angled away, touching the neck or face, or ventilating behaviors like opening a shirt collar or brushing hair back. When you increase cognitive load, you can expect more emotion to surface, but often through these physical leaks, not in their narrative.
So ask them directly about their emotions.
Precisely. Ask, how did you feel discovering the dead body? Liars will take time or reply with unconvincing emotion because they haven't built that into their story. Truth tellers will answer instantly, often displaying genuine emotion. Liars' narratives are often emotion devoid because they cannot simultaneously be objective in their lie and emotional in its details. This emotional leakage shows up more noticeably in their body language, like more frequent blinking, speech disturbances, slips of the tongue, and pupil dilation.
Blinking, slips of the tongue, okay.
The frequency of these signs correlates with the lie's complexity. So the best approach combines patiently poking holes with questions and observing specific behavioral cues.
What are some general tips for becoming better than average at lie detection, wrapping this section up?
First, let them volunteer information. Don't reveal what you know too early. Second, stay relaxed and casual. Don't create an inquisition environment that causes general distress. Third, focus on how they respond to conversational shifts, especially when fabricating. Fourth, listen for unusually long or detailed stories. Liars often use more words and may talk quicker. Fifth, take your time. The longer they talk, the more chance they have of slipping up.
Patience is key.
Sixth, watch primarily for inconsistencies. Details that don't add up, emotional expressions that don't fit, or abrupt shifts in their story. Seventh, always interpret your observations in light of known information, context, and observed patterns. Look for pattern disruptions. Finally, don't be afraid to trust your gut instinct. Your unconscious mind often picks up data your conscious mind hasn't. Don't make decisions on intuition alone, but don't dismiss it either.
Moving on to observations beyond direct interaction, sometimes we have very little time to assess someone, just minutes or seconds.
Yeah.
This is where thin slicing and cold reading come in, making snap judgments, basically.
Kind of, but with a bit more science behind it. Thin slicing is the ability to find patterns from very small amounts of data. Psychologists Nalini Ambady and Robert Rosenthal coined the term, but it's an old concept. It's about using minimal clues to make accurate predictions of future behavior.
And it works.
Surprisingly, research suggests that the accuracy of people's assessments doesn't significantly improve beyond the initial 5 minutes. In fact, some studies show intuition can even outperform deliberate, conscious appraisal in identifying bias or deception.
Like Malcolm Gladwell's Blink, where art experts immediately detected a fake sculpture without knowing why, and John Gottman, the marriage researcher who claimed 95% accuracy predicting marital longevity from brief observations, dropping to 90% with more time.
Exactly. Thin slicing is largely unconscious, which is why it's so quick. While sadness can lower accuracy, good people readers use both conscious and unconscious processes, leveraging each to offset the other's limitations.
So use both gut feeling and deliberate thought.
Right. If you get a bad feeling about a job interview, don't dismiss it. Go to the second interview with an open mind. Gather more data consciously. If you find evasive body language and inconsistencies, dig deeper. This combines intuition and deliberate thinking for better decisions. The advice is to notice your knee-jerk reaction, let it guide deeper conscious analysis, and challenge first impressions without dismissing your instinctive response.
Okay, pay attention to the gut, but verify. We can also make smart observations by listening to the words people use. Word choice, even in texts or email signatures, can be incredibly revealing.
Definitely. Studies show that while obscenity can make a speaker seem more intense, it doesn't boost credibility. Text message language can reveal personality. More, for extroversion, negative emotion words for neuroticism, and positive words for agreeableness.
Interesting. Text messages reveal personality.
To some extent. Neurotic individuals use evocative phrases like sick of or hate for minor annoyances, indicating deeper issues. When lying, people speak more, protesting too much, use more sense words, seeing, touching, and fewer personal pronouns, distancing themselves or subtly blaming others. Their stories can be convoluted, and they might avoid causal terms, as these are harder to fabricate on the fly.
So conscious word choice by politicians or marketers is one thing, but for most of us, it unconsciously reveals our values, personalities, and biases.
Yes. Watch for unnecessary jargon, especially in authority figures. It can signal a desperation to appear smart. Also, figurative language. Military or hunting terms used for dating might reveal an unconscious view of the opposite sex. Using we early on suggests seeking solidarity, while exclusive I statements indicate self-focus. Consider culpability. He got his feelings hurt versus I hurt his feelings.
Subtle but revealing.
This is murky territory, requiring attention to linguistic conventions, age, and context. But questions like, do they use a lot of I pronouns? Are their words emotional or neutral? Is jargon functional or for show? Do they swear often? What frame of reference does their vocabulary reveal in seeming disagreement as attack? Do they mimic your language to seek harmony? These questions guide your analysis.
It's like reading people the way Sherlock Holmes reads a crime scene. Even photographs, clothing, their home, or possessions can tell us so much. Clues are everywhere.
Indeed. A photograph is a literal thin slice. Datra Keltner and Leanne Harker at UC Berkeley studied yearbook photos, differentiating Duchenne, genuine whole face, smiles from Pan Am, forced mouth-only smiles.
The real versus fake smile.
They found women with genuine smiles were happier, more likely married, and had better health years later. Consistent forced smiles can indicate unhappiness.
And clothing. It's not just about fashion, is it? Seems obvious, but what are we looking for?
No, it's communication. Psychologists observe for unkemptness or eccentric dress for clues about mental state. Clothing is an identity claim, who we are and how we want to be seen. It communicates gender, culture, age, socioeconomic status, occupation, personality, and even religion. Dr. Jennifer Baumgartner, who advocates for a psychology of clothing, suggests looking at fit with environment, find jewelry at a construction site, signals priorities. Effort care, lack of care can indicate low self-esteem or depression. Status prestige markers. Uniforms, badges, wealth indicators reveal self-concept and values.
So their home and possessions are also extensions of their personality, like the old tradition in Provence of planting cypress trees to signal willingness to receive guests. That's fascinating.
Exactly. Christmas decorations can signal friendliness, according to one study. A home reflects comfort and self. Look for openness versus neglect, welcoming guest areas versus bareness, excess versus absence. Excessive family photos or books show what matters. An absence of personal items might suggest minimalism, but also potentially poor mental health, lack of social attachments, or low self-esteem.
Too bare could be a sign.
Aspirations. How they decorate, what they spend on, what inspires them, reveals how they see themselves and want to be seen. Political inclinations. Sam Gosling's Snoop. American conservatives tend to have more organizational items and conventional decor, being neater. Liberals have more books, art supplies, and are more colorful, reflecting openness and creativity.
Snoopology. I remember that book.
Behavioral residue. Piles of old bottles, unfinished books, or craft projects give a glimpse into habits. Every detail speaks volumes: radio channels, bumper stickers, desktop wallpaper, wallets, pets, reading material.
We're also leaving massive digital footprints these days. Can we really read people through their online behavior? Seems like people present idealized versions.
Yes, you can infer quite a bit, though, with caution. Start with emails. Timestamps can suggest if someone is a night owl or early riser. Michael Bruce's research on chronotypes links early risers to extroversion and ambition, while night owls can have higher dark triad traits, but also be more introverted, anxious, and creative. Erratic sleep might indicate stress and conscientiousness.
Interesting. Email times. What about social media?
Social media is also surprisingly revealing. A 2010 study found that people tend to display their real selves online, not idealized versions.
Really? Not idealized.
Mostly honest and straightforward, the study suggests. While neuroticism is harder to detect, conscientiousness and extroversion are more obvious. Pictures can also provide cues. Neutral expressions for high openness neuroticism, smiles and color for high conscientiousness, agreeableness, and extroversion.
Now, what about reading people in the workplace? Handshakes and even social media for hiring? Seems risky.
Handshakes are surprisingly crucial first impressions. A 2011 study found that people who shook hands were more accurate at assessing conscientiousness. A limp, dead fish shake can signal low self-esteem, sweaty palms, anxiety. Who initiates, squeezes too hard, or angles their palm down can indicate dominance or control. Who breaks first, or a lingering shake, might show reluctance or persuasion. Generally, a more open, warm handshake correlates with extroversion and agreeableness.
The handshake tells a story. And social media for hiring.
For hiring, Don Klimper's research suggests looking beyond resumes to social media. Strangers rated social media personalities, and those perceived as more conscientious, agreeable, and intellectually curious actually performed better in their jobs. This suggests self-portrayal on social media is relatively honest and influences career performance. Even party pictures mixed with broad interests can signal a well-rounded, authentic person. Insights are often found in unexpected places.
So observation can be active. We've talked about knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, and it being as hard as steel or a diamond. This journey of self-awareness parallels reading others. It's equally difficult.
It truly is. The problem with direct questions like, what makes me happy, is that they often elicit platitudes, encourage rambling, or even lying. They don't lead to much insight.
Right, people give the right answer, not the real one.
Instead, we should focus on indirect questions that elicit concrete answers and specific pieces of information, focusing on behaviors which are the best basis for understanding. Thoughts and intentions are useless if they don't translate into action.
So indirect questions for direct information. Give us some examples. This sounds really useful.
Our sources provide 4 powerful ones. 1. What kind of prize would you work hardest for, and what punishment would you work hardest to avoid?
Okay, what does that reveal?
This reveals true motives beyond surface-level desires. It taps into their instinctual pleasure-pain drivers and what they really care about. Look for the emotion behind their answers. A CEO wanting independence or someone avoiding poverty for security.
Their core drivers. What's next?
2, where do you want to spend money? And where do you accept skimping on or skipping altogether?
Following the money.
This reveals their values and what experiences they truly want or avoid. It's not about the item itself, but what it represents. Someone splurging on an epic boat excursion but staying in a shabby hotel prioritizes an unforgettable moment over creature comforts. Wherever money, time, or effort flows, that's where their values lie.
Okay, number 3.
3. What is your most personally significant and meaningful achievement, and also your most meaningful disappointment or failure?
Highs and lows.
Experiences shape identity, how people view themselves. Failures poke flaws. Achievements bring up strengths. A career woman who sees her ladder climb as her greatest achievement values independence and determination. Her disappointments show who she wants to be and where her expectations haven't been met, tells their story.
And the last one.
4. What is effortless and what is always exhausting?
Effortless versus exhausting. Why this one?
This helps understand what people genuinely enjoy. Something effortless doesn't always mean innate talent, but enjoyment. Something exhausting doesn't mean incompetence, but a dislike for the activity. A baker who struggles with creativity but loves the process finds it effortless because of enjoyment, even if it's difficult. Conversely, someone naturally talented at following recipes might find it exhausting because they don't value it. It's another indicator of their true values, where their energy naturally flows.
The practical application here seems to be that we can become human detectives, piecing together the puzzle of who someone is one clue at a time, using these kinds of questions.
What's fascinating here is how these indirect questions offer a backdoor into deeper motivations and values, revealing truths people might not even realize about themselves. They move beyond the superficial, allowing you to infer deeply held beliefs and drivers from concrete, observable responses.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into decoding human behavior. We've journeyed from understanding the subtle cues of body language and fleeting microexpressions to exploring deep motivations like the shadow and the pleasure-pain principles.
We covered a lot of ground.
We've looked at powerful personality frameworks that help us understand enduring patterns and even delved into advanced lie detection techniques. Finally, we've explored practical observational skills that extend beyond direct interaction, even using indirect questioning to uncover profound insights.
It's crucial to reiterate, though, that no single method or cue is foolproof. The true power lies in gathering clusters of data, considering every context, establishing baselines, and thoughtfully integrating different models to form a holistic, nuanced picture.
Integration is key.
It's an ongoing process of curiosity, observation, and adjusting your perceptions as new data comes in. You're never really done learning about someone.
And the transformative power of this isn't just about figuring people out for self-gain. It's about profoundly enhancing your empathy, improving your communication, and fostering richer, more authentic relationships. Unexpectedly, it also leads to a much deeper self-awareness.
That self-awareness piece is huge.
Becoming an astute student of human nature makes you a more sensitive, understanding friend, partner, or parent.
So consider this. If every interaction is an opportunity to gather data, what might you discover about the people closest to you or even yourself? Simply by shifting your attention and asking the right indirect questions.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button. Subscribe for more summaries and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.